Hello everybody and good morning. Welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. So we're going over the book, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. And we're on chapter 7 today, but before we jump into that, we're going to go ahead and invite some people onto here.
I almost want to change the order. I always said how to have power and confidence instead of how to have confidence.
I keep
and power.
wanting to do that too.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
I guess they did it for alphabetical order purposes. That's all I can think of.
In alphabetical order?
Confidence comes before power.
Okay. For a second I thought you... Never mind.
Getting 800 emails. Well, that's great. And gotta pay some bills. Awesome. Okay. And we have 27 notifications. No, that was not yet.
Alrighty.
Okay, we got a couple people jumping on here. We're going to go over chapter 7 of the book we're on. How to make the other person feel friendly instantly. He said, have you ever known someone who's one of those people, never met a stranger? I have one person in particular, actually I have two people in particular that I'm thinking of immediately. Seems to make friends instantly. Basically sits down to somebody next to a bus, and in minutes it was like they were old friends. He calls upon a prospect and the prospect starts right off talking to him as if they knew each other. On the other hand, we've all known people who are nice once you get to know them, but hard to get to know. The first class seemed to have some kind of magic almost that, you know, they can just turn on and all of a sudden they're friends with people. How much would that kind of technique help you in recruiting? It's amazing. It's one of the best things you can possibly have. There's a secret to it that he doesn't necessarily clarify in this chapter, but I'll tell you at the end. How to use magic to switch that turns on friendly feelings. He said, I've learned the easy to get to know types when he was in college, and he basically tells a story that when he's in college, he was having all kinds of issues talking to people. In particular, he was having problems asking girls out, and his roommate was just, you know, able to do it on demand. And he's like, finally, he found the secret. He's like, basically how he learned the secret, he finally, one day, he's like, you've got to believe that the other person likes you. That was the trick. You have to believe that the other person likes you. And here's what I found. People with low self-esteem don't believe other people like them. And that's one of the biggest issues, biggest problems, biggest drawbacks, biggest hangups people have is they just have internally think that other people have issues with them. Therefore, that comes off in everything they do. And it's like if you don't feel like we talked about yesterday, acceptance, if you don't feel approval right off the bat, then the other person doesn't want to necessarily get around you because they're like, this person probably disapproves. So it totally makes sense. It's going to be harder to recruit, harder to build a business, harder to get along with people. He assumed the attitude he expected from the other person and he wanted them to take. So by assuming that attitude, by assuming that demeanor, he created it in the other person. It says fear of people drives them away. So obviously, if you give off an unfriendly impression right off the bat, how do you give off an unfriendly impression? You're unable to look at the person. You're unable to smile. You're unable to give that person your attention. So attention is big. Acceptance is big. Approval is big. Appreciation is big. You know, these things kind of compound from chapter to chapter that we're talking about. Take a chance that the other person's friendly. The odds are in your favor. They are. More often than not, if you're super friendly to somebody, people are okay. I have this one particular friend kind of proved this. He's like, people around here are funny. Now, he wasn't from this country. He's like, people around here are pretty funny. What's up, Dakota? Benny's here. What's up? He's like, people are really funny in the United States. He's like, you know, they're driving, they'll almost run you off the road. He's like, and he was actually a dentist, so he would smile at him, and he's like, they'll go from like this, like, oh hi, like, he's like, people are so ridiculous. He's like, you know, they assume because you're driving faster. They assume because he had a really nice car. They assume because you're, well, you know, you're not a nice person, and he kind of plays the Mr. Bean, you know, like, hey, how are you? And it's just, it was hysterical to see people's reaction. And he did it a lot just to get the reaction. But always take a chance. The odds are in your favor that they're friendly. This book was written like 3,000 years ago, but it says, don't be an eager beaver. What translation to, you know, 75 years later. Don't go after it too fast. Don't expect too fast. It says we all know people who are basically wanting to make it happen too fast and win the other person's approval. These folks are, you know, trying too hard. We've all met the person that tries too hard. They just do too much. They overdo it, and it comes across as fake. It comes across as phony. It's not real. And when they come across like that, hi Shamala, when it comes across like that, it just doesn't work out for them. It says all of us know, girls and guys, that basically are trying too hard. And he references the person that's trying to get a date, or the person that really, 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 really wants to get married. And they come across just, hi Bess. He comes across just way too strong. You know, they're like, hi, how are you? It's nice to meet you. So when do you plan on getting married? You know, I mean, like, that's their first question. It's just too much, too fast. So there's an element of, you know, emotion here for sure, in expecting. There's an element of self-confidence, but then there's, like, I would call it the element of natural progression, right? Natural progression says that I will ask certain questions in a certain order. Marty, what's happening? I will ask certain questions in a certain order, and there is like an appropriate time frame. If you ask somebody out in the first 30 seconds, it's probably too fast. But if you wait, you know, 3 years, it's probably too slow. So there is a natural progression to how things work. You know, if you're asking somebody to get married in the 7th hour that you met them, it's probably too fast. But if you wait 7 or 8 years, it's probably too slow. I mean, these are just, you know, things that, you know, you have to base it on what society and what, you know, what culture you're in, because certain cultures do it much differently. But don't go too fast. Gary Vaynerchuk says, don't be the 18-year-old guy trying to close too fast. So relax and take it for granted that you'll be liked. If you just automatically expect people to like you. So we have a friend in the business that's passed away now, but he didn't know a stranger. He had the ability, I talked about him yesterday, Dave. Dave would have the ability to walk into anywhere and just make friends instantly. It was crazy how fast he would do it. I remember running into him in an airport because he was always flying somewhere. And we had flown down and we had just landed in Atlanta, and we were going on an all expenses paid trip for this company. And it was to Cancun. It was for a week. It was myself. I was really early in the business. Like, I really hadn't attended anything. I think it was the first thing that I really attended. I actually won the trip before I knew I had won the trip, and they had kept sending me messages, and I thought they were spamming me, you know, like, hey, come to Cancun. And I thought they were spamming me about Cancun because there was some company trip there. Well, I had won the company trip. I just didn't realize it. And I'm still like this. I'm pretty anti all the emails and all the promotions and stuff. I'm like, I don't have time for all this. I was working my real estate business. So I finally, you know, was talking with people in my upline, and they're like, yeah, we're going to Cancun. I'm like, yeah, I'm getting those stupid emails, but like, I don't know. He's like, what do you mean you're getting those emails? I said, well, I'm getting some email about Cancun. He goes, well, then you won. I was like, I won what? He's like, you won the trip to Cancun. I was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, it's an all expenses paid trip. I said, so this isn't something we're paying for. Like, I thought it was like a retreat to go to like a mastermind or something like that. He's like, no, the company is paying all expenses paid. He goes, you got to call them right away. The deadline's like 2 days. So I called and she's like, yeah, we've been calling, we've been emailing. So she's like, but you get to bring somebody else. Do you want to bring somebody else? So I called the person that I was seeing at the time and I'm like, hey, you want to go Cancun? Yeah, all expenses paid, sure. So we fly down to Atlanta. This is a long story to say this. We're in line and I'm like, so we're just going to call the company XYZ. I was like, well, there's supposed to be like 800 people from company XYZ. I just don't see any of them. Well, I happen to be standing behind the number one money earner in the company. And he turns around and goes, well, I'm with company XYZ. And I was like, no, you are company XYZ. You have like 80% of the volume of the whole company. And he goes, your first time on your trip? I was like, how did you tell? He's like, stupid novice. He didn't say that, but I mean, we had a great conversation. It was really cool just to stand and be able to talk with him. And, you know, he told us about the other 17 or 18 times he'd been on trips like that. And he's like, you guys are going to have a great time. He was just able to kind of completely set us at ease. Never had another conversation. And after that, you know, every time I ran into him, he was the easiest person to talk to. It was really easy to go up to him because he was so approachable, because he was so friendly, because of his expectation that you were just going to instantly like him. And it seemed like he was always in a good mood and always having a good time. Always in a good mood, always seemed like he had a good time. I don't ever remember him. We were outside a meeting one time and I had worked my way up. Same guy. And this is just kind of prove the point. Same guy. And he was there and he's like, well, you know, sometimes it happens. I was like, what's going on? And everybody was like frantically running around. He's like, they lost my luggage somewhere. And he was in like, he lived in Atlanta, but he spent a lot of time in Florida, you know, different things. And he was in basically like really nice khaki shorts, a Tommy Bahama shirt, you know, $150, you know, flowered like Hawaiian shirt, had his watch, had nice shoes. And he's like, you know what? I'm just going to do, they're like, do you want to go get a suit? He's like, nah, because then it needs, you know, hemmed and taken in, and I don't have time for all that. He's like, I guess I'm the number one money earner, so you just get what you get. So he goes in and does the meeting in short. Doesn't even care. Like, and that's what's funny is anything that seems weird is the first thing that you point out. Mm-hmm. Anything that seems weird is the first thing you point out. So if you had just recently, you know, lost some teeth, point it out. Be like, hey, I just came here to whistle at you the whole time. I mean, just whatever like kind of comes up. It's funny. It's relatable. You want to share. So.
And people are really understanding if something happens. So if you do point it out, people are like, oh, okay. Like, that totally makes sense. That's fine. And it makes people laugh, too, because they're like, oh, well, that's really funny, because, like, this happened to me one other time as well.
Point out the elephant in the room. Don't wait for the elephant to point it out, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So, work with miracle. It says work miracles with a smile. You'll get farther with a smile. And I kind of told you the joke about my friend who was a dentist that would like, you know, people would like get cut off or seem like that, you know, they're at a stop sign and they're just scowling at you. And then he like smiles. And the same thing is true when like you're trying to find a parking spot. He would do that. You know, he'd be going to pull in and feel like, you know, sourpuss in it. And he would just, and they would, it was funny how they'd react. They're like, oh, hey. And sometimes he would wave at them like, and didn't know them. How are you? Hey. And they'd be like, what a smile says. A good smile says several things about the other person. It says basically, I like you, I come as a friend, but always I assume that you're going to like me. Smile from deep down, so it's more body language than just, you know, the fake on like, you know, don't, you know, grit your teeth. And I've seen some people try to do that, like, hi, how are you? Like, way deep down, it says, let the voices come. What does it say? Oh, it says breathe deep and let their voice come from way down deep. I thought it was talking about voices. I was like, what am I reading here? Let go and smile. It says, one simple reason many of us do not smile or more sincerely do it is the habit we have of always holding back our true feelings. So you'll notice the people, I mean, it's not just holding back your true feelings. It's like, you want to demand and command your body, your nervous system to be on point when you want it to be on point. You're in control of your overall functionality of your body 99% of the time. Obviously, if you're sick, your body kind of takes over and is like, no. But you're in control. You have the ability to control it. Tony Robbins teaches many, many techniques on how to do this on command, about how to put yourself in state. You should be able to put yourself in state instantly. What state? The state you want. The problem is most people put themselves in a state, and it's not a good state. Becky's here. Hello. So how to use mirror magic. Mirror magic is basically mirroring what the other person does. If you sit the way they sit, if you stand the way they stand, if their arms are crossed, your arms are crossed. If their legs are crossed, your legs are crossed. And what you can do is if you mirror match them in tonality, if you mirror match them in volume, then eventually what you can do is you can change. As you change, you can influence them. It's kind of like the principle of be one step ahead of where they're going. Mirror match them first and then start changing and watch them change. If you lean forward, they'll lean forward. If you lean back, they'll lean. It's really weird to do this. Once you kind of master this, it gives you a way to, it makes people feel like you're just like them. And that sense of you're just like them makes them feel more comfortable. It's easier to develop friends. How to develop a genuine smile is if you have trouble conjuring up, the smile at first, don't worry. Just go ahead and go through the motions anyway. So the action produces the feeling. Again, the action produces the feeling. You will very seldomly feel your way into acting, but you will always act your way into feeling. Certainly body expressions to go with certain emotions. So it's also thinking about, it's basically using your imagination that was creating the fear to use your imagination to create the faith that it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out. It's going to go how you want it to. The problem is most of us envision scenarios where it's not going the way we want it, and therefore we create, whatever we're seeing. We create whatever feeling that's dominating us. If it's fear, we're going to create that fear. If it's, questioning, we're going to create that questioning. You can test the power of a smile. I recently gave a talk to a personnel of outstanding chain of stores in Ohio. My walk included some hints on smiling and magic. Some weeks later, I met one of the people that was concerned about this. She was quite enthusiastic and anxious to tell me about some of her wonderful discoveries. After hearing my talk, she decided to test my theory of smiling. She selected as her test the shopping tour she was going on the next day. The next day turned out to be very humid and rainy and generally disagreeable and depressing. The stores were crowded. Nevertheless, she basically needed to buy 5 items that were in different department stores. So she remembered my suggestion to give the other person a smile before saying a word. She was able to complete all 5 transactions in less than 30 minutes. Never before had she been able to accomplish so much shopping in such a short time. The main reason, one counter was surrounded by a large group, anxious to be waited on. Everybody was pissed off, and guess what? She smiled. And the lady's like, hey, you're next. She's like, it's amazing. People want to deal with people who are friendly, right? Use your $1 million asset. Your $1 million asset is your smile. It says, you're like a man or woman with $1 million in the bank and a checkbook ready to write the check. It says, what else has the magic of a smile? Another thing that has the magic of a smile is eye contact, acceptance, approval, appreciation, and attention. When you give somebody your full attention. Eye contact, using their name. These are all techniques that help influence someone else that says, I like you, I'm interested, I'm here, what's going on. It says meet somebody for the first time, smile, and then, obviously, hey, my name is, introduce yourself. So don't wait for the other person. It says that was one of the things in chapter summary. It says human relations often become deadlocked because each party is afraid to make the first move. Always be the first to introduce yourself. Hi, my name's Jeff. what's your name? And that's how Dave would do it. He's like, hey, I'm Dave from Atlanta. Who are you? And it was funny. People would just be like, oh, I'm from so-and-so. And he's like, oh, wow. And he always, because he knows people everywhere, it never failed. They'd be like, I'm from some undisclosed place that nobody's ever heard of. He's like, I've heard of it. I've actually been there. He's like, do you guys still have the church on the hill, the blah, 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 and, the stone in the very front? And they're like, yeah. He's like, you've been to my house, you've been to my... And that's what's the law of familiarity, the law of things in common. He would just be able to break through. I've yet to meet another individual who could do this. My grandfather was kind of like this. Like, he would leave to the store for ketchup and come back like 6 hours later and know 15 more people. Like, it was unbelievable. So, with that being said, that was chapter 7. Monday, we're going to be going over part 4, how effective speaking techniques can help you succeed. So, how you can develop skills in using your words. So this is a really good chapter. Everybody have a great weekend. It's supposed to get cold in Indiana. I don't know what you guys are doing, but it's supposed to be 40-something tonight, and I found out why. It's not climate control. It's the fact that Cracker Barrel puts up Christmas ornaments at the end of August. I think that's really what it is. It's not climate control at all. It's actually Cracker Barrel's fault. Across the country, they start putting up Christmas trees September 1st, and we need to tell them to stop. It's just ridiculous. So, with that being said, what else?
That is it. So we will see you guys on Monday, and have a good weekend.
Awesome.